The joke last week was open source. You don't write test in open source projects. Well, it's not really a real contribution, but it is. If you know how to write tests, come talk to me.
It's Issues with Brian.
What's up, y'all? Issues with Brian back again with another one. And if you aren't familiar, we've got this project. It's called HotOpenSauce.pizza, and it's a platform to find your next open source contribution. We've been working on this for a minute, for a while, and we've got some cool features that we haven't shipped yet. They're not public at the time of recording this video, but like things like being able to submit your own projects for review and upvoting. So all that stuff exists for you to use. This is actually a deploy preview of a PR that I just merged in. Wanted to actually talk through this because it's not a huge change, but it's actually super helpful. It's helpful because we've been actually adding like post hoc analytics to identify where people are clicking. It's all anonymized data, so we're not storing any private information. But the goal here is that when we go to each link, we have a router. And it's funny because we haven't had a router in this project ever. And now we have a router, so we're getting serious. And so this is, if you didn't know, this is actually a React and Vite app. So now we have React Router included. It's at this point, I wonder if Remix, if we should just look in the Remix, but I don't think we need to get that far yet. It's nice to be able to make all the decisions on the project moving forward. But what I'm getting at is now we have routing, and we appreciate Han who jumped in the chat last week, a couple weeks ago actually, and said hello and picked up. Actually, Han actually reached out to me in a Twitter DM and said, "Hey, I would love to get involved in open source." And I said, "I would love for you to work on this issue." And he did just that. The issue, literally the issue, I said, "Hey, this is good first issue. Let's grab it." He grabbed it and he contributed and he jumped in the chat. And I think that actually kind of shows a lot of opportunity there. Like if you want to get involved in open source, sometimes you just have to say you want to get involved in open source and people will give you stuff to work on. So this is our good first issue that just got merged in. And the goal here was just add routing to the project. So now we have it. And we're good to go. Also going to show off some of the code too, because sometimes I do this and I forget that I never show off the code anymore. I don't know, just make a lot of assumptions. But yeah, as I mentioned, React Router DOM now exists in the project. We've added the browser router, so if you've actually used React Router, this is nothing new. It's like a super approachable thing to do. So if you work full-time engineering on a React app, very approachable. And we're trying to make this project approachable for anybody to make contribution. And that's exactly what we did. And then there were some like small, minute changes of spacing and stuff like that. So some of the stuff we didn't actually, Han didn't actually change, but it did show up in sort of the diff. But I just wanted to show off this because, again, we have an issue. We now have it merged in. And that's the conclusion of Issues with Brian. So if you are at all interested, I do highly recommend going into the project, go to projects, and then we have this product hunt for open source. Now that is actually what we're trying to do. We're trying to build the product hunt for open source. That's why it kind of looks similar, but not really. This view actually looks a little more similar, but we haven't actually added all the features to filter by week. But what we do have is we have a bunch of, we have a handful of issues, 2 of them, that are up for grabs. Then we have a bunch of issues that are grabbed here. And then what we have here is stuff that's already been completed that's been shipped to beta, but has not been shipped to the main deployed branch. And I showed this off, this product hunt for open source project branch. And the reason for that is we're going to hopefully add way more issues and way more backlog of issues here. So if you do ever want to work on some open source, you want to come chat with us in the Discord, do so. And hopefully we'll have more stuff for folks to work on in the future. You could also switch to the Kanban board as well. It's the same context. It's just all in a Kanban style. And then we also have some backlog stuff. So we do have things for like test coverage. Would love to talk to anybody who wants to talk about test coverage if you want to work on that. The joke last week was open source. You don't write test in open source projects. Well, it's not really a real contribution, but it is. If you know how to write tests, come talk to me. I'd love to talk through how we can improve coverage. Actually, how we can set up to even check how much test coverage we have. That's one thing that's actually kind of challenging. I've never done that before. I've done it with a Rails app, but Rails does a lot of like free stuff for you. Anyway, I'm rambling. So that is the that's the conclusion of Issues with Brian. I appreciate you coming through and watching me do this. I'm going to stick around and write some more code. But for now, if you want to get involved in open source, grab a piece of pizza and make a contribution.
It's Issues with Brian.